So let me ask you something. Instead of paying over $800 a month for your kid's car, you instead own investments that pay that car payment for you. Not once, but every time.
Because most people think about buying a car like this. You save up money, you take out a loan, and then your paycheck pays the monthly bill. But there's another way to think about it. So today we're going to be breaking down the math behind what we call the Forever Car Fund and how parents can start building it from the day their kids are born.
Absolutely. Let's go. Hey, welcome back to the Buy Your Kids a House podcast series. Again, I'm Matt. This is Andrew. This is a podcast for parents that are trying to build wealth while raising kids in one of the most expensive times in history.
We're breaking down the real financial decisions so families can spend smarter, invest better, and hopefully set up their kids for a stronger future. Today, we're going to be doing a chapter deep dive into setting up your Forever Car Fund.
Yeah, let's go ahead and figure that out. So let's first kind of go into a little bit about what used to be the typical way of usually buying your kids a car, and the challenges and everything with the math. Looking into that, a lot of times when you try to get your kid a car and everything, initially you're first looking at maybe trying to find a cheaper car, used car, possibly a new car and everything. But the differences of the prices with that can be really a struggle. When you're looking at what today's car market is. First off, used cars are a lot more expensive than what used cars used to be. Definitely used to be, I'm going to get my kid, a $2,000, beater, and it's just going to be fine out there and get going. Can't find those anymore. Now, used cars are still even over half or even 3/4 of the price of what a new car is. And a lot of times also when you're buying a used car and everything, the APR is going to be slightly higher than of a new car at a dealership. So you have to weigh those pros and cons of, do I want a 0% APR for $40,000 new car, or do I want a $30,000 used car, a 3 or 4% APR? And the monthly payments of that actually come out to really, close to the similar same and everything. So, the benefit of a used car having already, 30, 40, 50,000 miles on the car might not be, outweigh the benefit of getting a new car compared to what it was. I'm sure a lot of us remember when you got your first car.
Well, yeah, like you said, the prices have gone up so much, and that's not even including if you have multiple kids. If you have more than one kid, then you have to double the price of everything. So the best way to do it is to find the better deal and start saving that money as a whole. But I remember my first car, my dad was a mechanic growing up, and luckily he was a mechanic because all of our first cars were beaters that he got for like $1,000, $1,500, something like that. And then he would have us actually help him rebuild the engine. So I've done 2 engines before in my life, but not everyone's lucky enough to have a dad that knows enough about cars to rebuild something like that. And so when you have beaters now, they're going to be the cars in the $2,000 range, $3,000 range that the engines don't work. And it's just going to be pointless and useless to anyone. And you're going to be spending more money taking it to a mechanic than you would just going to a dealership and looking at the new cars and what they have to offer.
No, absolutely. And again, as a parent, reliability of a car is a very, very important feature to me because, like you said, the car is in the shop more than it's on the road. It's not helping the kid out anyway. And also as a parent, none of us want to imagine our kids stranded on the side of a road, like late night, can't get home because their engine blew and everything. I'm sure we've all been there ourselves and everything. It's not a fun experience.
No.
And, we don't want that for our kids to be out there stuck like that. And, again, my first car was a Jeep Cherokee way back in the day. It was about $5,000 at that point in time. And that was a good car. Like at least at that point, it was already in good shape and could get around and do everything that I needed to do. I had it for a decent amount of time through part of my college years and everything. But, you can't find deals like that anymore and everything. And yes, you can get more limited cars, but even a lot of times you used to go to cars like maybe you get like a stick shift because it was cheaper. That's no longer a thing. Now stick shifts are like a higher end feature in cars.
Yeah.
You might get crank windows because I don't need electric in the car for my kid because
what's that?
I know
you used to have to go like this to roll down your window and like this to roll it back up.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, there's I'm sure many people watching right now don't even know that used to be power windows was a add-on feature.
Yeah,
I know even a lot of cars up north would not even be built with AC in the car. That was an add-on feature because the thought was if you were up north, you didn't necessarily need it because even in the summer it wasn't that hot. One of my old roommates, when he first moved down here from Maine, his first car he sold very quickly because he learned the hard way of you need AC in Florida.
That the heater should be the optional one in Florida for sure.
Yeah, no, we could do without that here for the most part. But yeah, those are features now that like just come standard. And as more and more technology is put in these cars and everything, they're more and more expensive in that area of everything, the computer screens, the touch screens,
Yeah.
and all these different gadgets and everything put in. Cars today you can't really find just cheap kid options and everything. So again, I think looking at the aspect of what a new car versus used car, and having that element of that what used to be the feature of like, oh no, don't buy new because you're instantly depreciating your vehicle. I get that, but now used cars, because they're holding their value at dealerships as much as they are now, I think they're partially falsely inflating those values. But because of it, like the value savings isn't what it used to be. And again, saving more in the APR and then having the less miles and the reliability of the car over the longer time. Because again, you have a car now under warranty for longer,
Yeah.
yeah, and then again, less miles, that car's going to last longer. Even if you buy a car with 30, 50,000 miles, that's a year or two of use that you're not going to get out of the car. And I don't think that the few $1,000s that they take off the price is worth that year or two less of use. And also, if you're paying, a lot of these loan terms now get 6, 7 years and everything. If you're
Yeah.
having a year or two off the use of the car, by the time you hit a year 6 or 7, that car might not be in shape enough to still be on the road. And then you hear a lot of times what people run into a lot of times is rolling that negative equity into the next loan.
Mhm.
And that is a trap that I'm sure a lot of people here probably are nodding their heads a little bit.
Yeah,
Like,
they're like, yeah, been there.
yeah, because then that affects your next car, and then that snowballs to your next car, and you're
Mhm.
stuck with that a lot of times for many, many cars until you get out of that, because you're constantly rolling that negative equity,
Yeah.
which I think should not be allowed. But car dealerships figure out ways because they want to sell you cars. And then I understand that if your car is dead, you have to get a car, so you're kind of stuck there. But having where you want a car already hopefully paid off by the time your kid's done with it, that to me is more important than having the potential of them having to roll over $5,000 or $10,000 of negative equity into the next car.
Yeah, exactly. Like you were saying, the gap between the both is not as big as it used to be, because it used to be buy a used car because you save so much money on it.
Yeah.
But like you said, with the inflation and everything, and those cars holding the value, you get the better deals, you get the warranties, you get all of the things from a new car that you wouldn't get from this used car. And that adds to the value as well. So you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah. So again, I know the old adage, and I'm sure all of our parents, told us this, and I'm sure that their parents told them that, because again, it used to be the old adage. It was, especially when you're buying, don't buy a new car because of how much value it loses. Well, right now, that has changed in this market, so I think we can all agree on that. The warranty aspect, and also the added aspect of the peace of mind of knowing that hopefully you have a more reliable car for longer years, and not having to potentially roll over that negative equity to the next car, definitely makes buying a new car more attractive than what it used to be. And I think that's the main thing I want you to take away from this section here is that area of like, those three elements to me doesn't make it, because I know some people are here with their parents just thinking like, oh, I should buy used for my kids, I start off with a used car, therefore they should start with a used car and everything. And I'm saying that potentially look at breaking that cycle, because the benefit from it just isn't quite there. Now we're going to next part, we're going to dive into, like, instead of still buying a used car, but now we're going to look at how we can help eliminate that payment with what we already discussed earlier, the idea of the Forever Car Fund. And let's go ahead and start covering that.
All right.
So now we're going to kind of go over what the investment alternative to doing this, which is what we like to call the Forever Car Fund. And basically this is where the math of the car payment you want to replace with investment income. So again, I'm going to use an example of a $40,000 car, 0% APR. I know some people on there thinking that $40,000 is too expensive of a car and everything. I struggle to find really too many cars that are not reliable in that range. I think that's a nice, easy, round number of what to look at. And some people want to be saying, well, where you get 0% APR, there are still plenty of dealership deals when you get a new car. I actually just bought a car about a year ago, was able to get 0% APR. And yes, you do obviously need your credit score things to match with that. But if you're following our system, then you should be having a pretty good credit score at this point and everything. And if you need help with that, watch some of the previous videos, because we'll help get on track with your budget and finances. Because again, mastering your credit score and your own finances is a steps before doing this. So you should be able to have that credit score needed to qualify for that 0% APR. But with that, we're going to use $40,000 at 0% APR, which would be roughly about $8,000 a year for a 5-year loan. I don't necessarily want you to go much farther than a 5-year loan, because again, especially with kids, probably not the best at maintaining cars, a little rough run cars.
Yeah.
They don't know necessarily how to take care of things. I know my kids don't, at least. So again, yes, we want them to have that car for many years past the 5 years. but I don't want you to again be stuck with having a negative equity to roll over, even if we're using investments from this. But anyways, so we're going to stick with 5 years for $40,000, which is roughly 8,000 a year. So if you're getting investments at roughly a 10% rate of return, that's $80,000 to be invested in. And the beautiful part about this is once you have that $80,000 invested and you're getting that 8,000 that you're using each year, once the car's paid off, you still got the $80,000.
That's right.
So your chunk of your money is still there for the next potential car.
Mm-hmm.
Your asset of your investment did not go away. Now, again, this is where paying attention to the APR is important and everything with this because, and I'm not saying you have to get a 0, but you want to make sure that it's probably 3% or below, because if you start creeping at 5, 6, 7, 8% and everything, then it really the math doesn't work of what you are investing versus what you're paying for in the car. But again, having that credit score in check to have that 3% or below, preferably 0, maybe 1 or 2%, is definitely the range to be at. But once you have that paid off, your asset's still there, so that the next time your kids have to buy a car, they still got the money sitting there. So again, this is a rinse and repeat method, hence why the Forever Car Fund.
Yeah, no, exactly. Using your investments instead of just your typical loan payments, or even using it for the loan payments, but monthly as well. But having that money already there is also a huge stress reliever as well. Having that investment, looking into that first, and setting that up to, like you said, Forever Car Fund. It just keeps going. You can just keep getting the new cars and using that investment to also pay it down as well. Another thing that is an option, I don't necessarily know if it is as good of an option, but dividends.
Yeah.
I think that you're going to have to invest a lot more in that.
Yeah, so dividends are a very solid option, and I do think that for your personal wealth growth and everything, having dividends to pay for an option of your car payment is a great alternative. However, as you mentioned, you do need a lot more capital to do so, and especially if you're trying to pay for your kid's car in 16 years, that might be a tight window. I'm going to use Coca-Cola as an example, a company that has a pretty regular return of a dividend and everything, usually about 50 cents every quarter, so about a little over $2 a year. And I know you're always thinking, oh, $2 that isn't that much. But you need roughly 4,000 shares, and currently Coca-Cola is trading around $75-ish and everything. Yeah. So you need a little over $300,000 in Coca-Cola in order to pay for that. So for you as an adult, I think that's a great way because, again, you're taking out the market volatility, which is a risk that's used with regular capital gains of going down with stocks, because dividends are usually a little more regular payments, especially from some of these blue chip companies that have been paying dividends for a long time. Whereas you do run the risk if you're just using your normal gains from an investment. There might be times where the market, there will be times that the market does dip, and that $80,000 might turn into $75,000 or $70,000. And yes, you will lose a little bit of that, and you might have to regain that back. But I think trying to reinvest another $5,000 or $10,000 back into that $80,000 fund is a lot easier to achieve than to try to grow the $300,000 and have dividends paid for initially. When you're getting closer to retirement or something like that, that might be a great way to make sure you're locked in and set for your retirement years, which is where I think that's where dividend payments can really, really benefit from that. But especially when you're just trying to pay for your kids' aspect and starting them off in that way, I think just using regular investments and having the capital gains from those investments be the paying of that payment is a better route to go initially.
Yeah, no, it saves you from the initial investment, the amount of money you have to initially invest. And I agree, unless you're a little bit later in life, that doing it this way, whether there be like the downfalls or the ups, it's definitely the better option. You do also have to keep in mind about the capital gains, and that's around 15%?
Roughly and everything, but capital gains, you do have to pay 15% roughly in taxes on that. Definitely something to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. Again, we're using nice round numbers of 40,000 and things like that. But again, you're going to do this simple math for your car and your own thing, and you need to have 15% more to offset and pay for that. But dividends also get taxed as well. They get taxed as ordinary income. Mm-hmm. So depending on what tax bracket you're at, that's going to be impactful. It could be upwards of 26%. So again, the difference between the two, you actually could be getting less tax by doing capital gains versus dividends. But do take both into account, because you don't want all of a sudden when next year rolls around, you had to pay the tax man in April. You don't want to have that money be like, man,
no,
where's that money? I didn't have it. You do have to plan forward for that. So definitely roll that. Make sure that capital gains is built into whatever your plan is. Same with the dividends as ordinary income and everything as well. So definitely keep that in mind. But I think that kind of covers the investment alternative. We're going to talk about what it takes to get you to that point and where to go from there. So now we're going to talk about how to build that forever car fund and when you want to start planning doing it. And the answer is today.
Yeah, right now.
Ideally, you want it when your kids are first born. Maybe you're planning to have kids. Maybe it's on your radar to have kids. You have a newborn. But just because you already have kids, maybe they're already 5 or 10 years old and everything, doesn't mean not to start now. It just means, unfortunately, you do have to invest a little bit more to get caught up and everything with it. But the idea, I know a lot of people are already screaming at this thing and typing in the comments of like, $80,000 is a lot of money. Again, when you have 16 years to plan for that, you're going to find out it's actually not as big of an impact as what you think.
Yeah, no, exactly. And once that fund exists, you're basically eliminating the car payment for life, which is huge.
Yeah.
Like, who among us right now that you and I know that don't have, like, that have the funds to be able to not pay for the car fund? Or I said that backwards. You know what I meant.
Yeah.
To be able to use that fund to pay for the car. And that's crazy to me because I didn't grow up learning any of this. So like now that I'm an adult and learning all of this stuff now, like I'm going to start doing it. I don't want a car payment out of my own pocket. So that is huge to just start immediately wherever you're at and whatever stage of life you're at for your kids, for yourself, however you want to start it, just do it. That's the most important thing. And 175 months or $175 invested a month, that's really all about it takes.
Yeah. So again, if you're looking at it over the course of 16 years, assuming obviously your kid wants to get a license at 16, which I know I was ready to do, so you want to get that $80,000, that's $175 a month at 10% rate of return over those 16 years. And this is where what I think is the most fun part is that's only about $34,000 of your own money actually put in.
Yeah.
So that's the powers of compounding interest and everything with this. So if you're only spending $34,000 of mom and dad's money for your kid's car, and again, that's the forever car fund for that. You now, for $34,000, less than a $40,000 car,
right?
You now are paying for that car for life every time that you need to do, and you just rinse and repeat that cycle every time you purchase a car. And to me, this is where it helps your kids so much better going in the future. The whole point of this podcast is we're helping you with your budget and helping make things easier. You're looking at 50, 30, 20. Well, car payment falls under that 50.
Yeah.
That's one of the bigger payments under your 50, along with the rent and mortgage and your health insurance and whatever, your food. Well, now we just scratched that one off the list.
Yep. Goodbye.
Yeah. And that's a huge help for your kids going forward. And we're going to teach you also how to replace a lot of those other ones as well, using very similar methods to this, which is what the whole point of this and eventually the book coming out and everything will be.
Yeah.
But you're going to see for $34,000 to replace and have that car payment done
for life.
And like you said, do it for yourself too.
Yeah.
I know you don't necessarily probably have 16 years to save up for and everything. You might have to try to ramp it up and catch up a little bit. But if you can get to $80,000 or $100,000 that you can then use for this, then your car payment's taken care of, and that's scratched off your list now of your expenses off your budget.
Yeah,
and you're one step closer to retirement then there too.
Hey, anytime that I can eliminate expenses is good by me.
Yeah. So again, this is how, and we want to set that forever car fund. Everything is building off of that, investing that money towards it. $175 a month. I know for the most part, most people can go through their budget and figure out a way to find that in there and everything. Because again, you're talking, $5 a day and everything, $6 a day and everything throughout the month and everything. So to be able to hit that benchmark, not that, you could figure out a way to finagle that.
Yeah, move some stuff around and be able to make that happen because that is important above a lot of other things as well.
Yeah. So again, these things, when we're putting these together and we're going to put the whole system together eventually and everything. But, this again is covering the idea of how to set up that forever car fund. Now, we're going to kind of dive into what happens now as car prices go up, or what if our kids want to get bigger cars? We're going to kind of go into the idea of what they can do to prepare for that down the road.
All right, let's take a look.
Yeah. So now we're going to kind of go to the idea of, okay, we set our kids up now for a starter car out in life and everything. But, at the end of the day, we all know that most people eventually will want a nicer car. Maybe car prices go up. What do we do to help, protect ourselves for that element and everything moving forward? And the simple way is we still have that initial $80,000 principal set up and everything. So if your kids, you start with a starter car, you're probably going to have that car for, 7 or 8 years or so. If you take care of it, maybe up to 10 years before you need a replacement. They can use that time frame to then increase their funds on their own, because we're setting them up for life doesn't mean that they need to be hands off and not do anything for life. we want to make life easier for them, but if they want to upgrade their life, that's where their own job and career and life and work will kick in for that. And again, having an $80,000 principal to start off with is a great starting point. And you basically just need to try to build up to having twice the price of whatever car it is you're wanting to do to have that investment put aside. So if they want to go from a $40,000 car to a $60,000 car, then maybe they need to have $120,000 in savings. If they want an $80,000 car, they need $160,000 in savings from that. And they can now piece that out based on having the $80,000 starting off, how much they need to invest to hit that benchmark by the time they need to get the next car. Now granted, their time frame is going to be much smaller than the 16 years probably, but that's their choice and everything with that. So, there is a way of still, doing this process without having to give up the principle or the concepts of having the money to invest and keep repeating the car. Because that's what we want them to keep is the idea that the investments is paying for the car.
No, exactly. And teaching them that early to set them up for when they hit that age to where they can start investing more is very important. To the whole foundation of this whole podcast is setting your kids up, but also providing them with the knowledge to be able to continue that for the generational wealth and that it continues. So like you said, if they want to upgrade it, invest more money, and it's really not that difficult to do. You just have to, stay consistent with it, be patient with it, and you'll start seeing the results come in to where you can start eliminate all of these bills and really pull together the foundation of what we're about and what we're wanting to share with other people as well.
Yeah. So again, like you maybe paid the $175 a month for their childhood to have that car and everything. They might need to invest $400 or $500 a month to catch up to the level that they want to be at. But then that's their choice. And if it fits within their budget, they're able to do so. Your idea is of a parent is you're trying to set them up for the ease of having the flexibility within their budget to do so. If they're perfectly content with the car that the level of car that they have and they're happy with that, fantastic.
Yeah.
But if they want to increase and everything, and then it's their choice and it fits within their budget, we're giving them that financial knowledge to not give up on the investments, but just increase investments so that it replaces that bill. Because as we replace those bills, the flexibility of life just really opens up at that point. Again, we mentioned about a 50, 30, 20.
Mm-hmm.
If you take off having to pay for the rent and mortgage, which is where buying a house comes in, you take off the car, you have them hopefully replace the health insurance costs, and you help them replace the food costs. Life becomes a lot easier when that 50 portion of your 50, 30, 20 is off the books.
It's just gone, very minimal as well.
Yeah. So again, that's what the whole process of this is by setting up investments from a early starting point, having those years to go on, because your kids have the added time, the added years. You had 16 years, hopefully the plan for your kids to get to that point of buying a car.
Yep.
That $34,000 initial investment is going to seem like chump change in the long term when they're going around and never having to pay for car payment again. Planning for that in advance, but make sure you have you're invested into the funds and everything in there. You're getting hopefully that 10% rate of return. You still need to catch up every now and again if the market dips. That's fine.
Yeah.
But make sure you're not taking that principal out and just buying the car lump sum. You want to make sure maybe also looking at the advantage of buying new versus used. Mm-hmm. I know the old adage again is always buy used. Buy cheaper. You'll save that much more. But I think we can all agree, at least in the last 5 or so years, that has not really been the case.
It's changed a lot.
Now, granted, the time of this recording is 2026.
Yep.
So maybe things will change in the next 5 or 10 years. We'll see. But at least since COVID, basically, used cars have been right on par with new cars. Mm-hmm. So I think looking at the dealerships with a new car, the warranty and the better APR is much more attractive currently, especially with the peace of mind of a better vehicle for your kids to start off at. So, not losing the sight of that, along with also making sure that investment's paying for it. So then it's hands off and you're free and good to go with that now. So I think those are very important areas to look at when you're looking to get your kids a car.
Yeah, and I think you hit all the bullet points from this episode as well. Really just hone in on everything. We also do want to hear from you in the comments. We want to know what you look for when you buy a car. If you're looking for used, if you're looking for new and that 0% APR, what dealerships you like, why you like them, if you like the negotiation tactic, or if you prefer to go somewhere that's not as commission based, so you don't get as much of that in the deal as just what it is. But we want to hear from you, so let us know about it as well.
Yeah, so if you have any alternative ideas, please, if you hate our system in this, go ahead and let us know. We're happy to hear the feedback. We want to learn and grow with this. This is my thoughts of how I'm doing it for my kids and everything. But if you have different numbers and math, please show me. I'll gladly look at it and everything. But if you like this, please like and subscribe. Join us on this journey. And always, as remember, you got to build wealth the boring way.
So your kids can live the bold way.
Till next time, take care.